That's a cute little joke.
Oh, I'm babysitting a 7-year-old, and I want to tell him a cute little joke on Halloween. That's what you do with that.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, like, it can lead you into a whole thing about the video game Myst, where you can just like, really explain to this kid.
And super dump on them about how you wanted to break a console at a very young age. I will say, since you brought up Myst, that I didn't play it on PC. I got it for I think PlayStation, the first one.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I believe so.
I played it on PC.
Yeah. I did not. I read the books, the Myst books.
I did not.
Those Myst books. But I will say that I could not do any of the puzzles.
Me neither.
And I tried.
They have that studio has a new game out, which is obviously like Myst adjacent, but looks very interesting. Their stuff is always beautiful. I just can't do it, and it was always like a weird first-person thing for Myst. Like it was a first-person that I wasn't ready for, and I just never. I wanted to like it. I really did.
I was really excited about it. For those that don't know what we're talking about, there's a game called Myst, and it was like one of the first real puzzly, only puzzle based, it's a point and click adventure, which there's a bunch of point and click adventures that were great back in the 90s. But this particular one was the bane of a lot of people's existence, because you'd start to play it and you're like, I am clicking it. I'm clicking it to go left. It's not moving. Why? Oh, you didn't turn this knob. And now it's like a staple. If you go into other games now, there's a lot of games that are this adventure puzzle kind of.
It was very
where you have to really.
It was weirdly ahead of its time, but also not polished in a way that I think was widely user friendly. Right?
Yeah.
Would you kind of is that a good
I'd
representation?
Agree. Yeah, I'd agree to that. It was, and I actually, when they re-released it recently, I did try to play it again, and I was like, no, never mind. I'm still not. I wanted to be into it, and I just, I played other kind of point and click kind of puzzle adventure-y stuff that has been released, such as there's some really good Xbox ones that are out. There's the whole King's Quest came out.
Yeah. And that was good. First person King's Quest. And King's Quest was great.
It was.
There was something that didn't translate over for me. Also, now there's there's some cool integrated board games where you can use an app, or I think some might even do a DVD, where you can actually play on the TV or on your phone, and it integrates with the card, or what am I thinking of? A board map. A board game situation. It's really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, I've played a couple of those. It's actually it's fun. It was neat.
That's pretty cool.
Neat. I liked it. Hey, everybody listening and watching to us. Watching. Stop watching me. Jeez, I see you over
We're the watchers.
Oh my god. Watching me so hard. Oh. Welcome back. We're doing some D&D stuff, and today we decided to talk about being a DM or dungeon master or game master, if you prefer to call yourself that, and not have people think that you're also a dungeon person for sexy stuff.
You're not into the spicy side of life, but honestly, to be a DM or a GM or whatever you like to call yourself, storyteller, you have to be a little bit spicy, I think.
I think so.
You know?
Yeah.
We last couple episodes we talked about building characters and getting ready to play kind of stuff. Like there's so many walkthrough how-tos, and it's going to be up to you as a player to figure out like what you want to do. But on the flip side, you have the person that's actually going to be leading the team, right? The person that is going to lay out the story and try to continue the drive and make it interesting for you.
Yeah.
Most people end up in a position where there's no one that wants to be in that role. And it's really hard to find someone to do it. And so you always have that one friend that goes, oh, fine, I'll do it. Right?
Yep, forever DMs and things like that.
And then you end up in that meme of forever DM. You'll always have players, but you're never going to play, you know?
Yeah.
But in reality, you know, you do play. You actually play more than all the other players because you're controlling everything. Like how all the NPCs and coming up with new characters on the fly or battles. You're both the monster and the victim, you know?
Yeah, so, real talk. I think sometimes people really sort of play the bleeding heart thing about having to DM so much, but really they also kind of like hearing how good they are at it or how impressive their voices are or, ooh, you tell such a good story. And it's a very like fun thing to be like, I mean, yeah, you complain about it, but you also do it, so I think you kind of like it at the same time, which is totally fine, but like just lean into it. Enjoy doing it. Because like, I mean, I DM mostly for kids or like close family members and things like that. And that's fun, but I also get to kind of skirt the rules a little bit. I don't have to get bogged down with all the details and the challenge ratings and things like that, because I'm not playing with anybody who is going to know to call me out on shit. So, you know, that's what I do mostly. But I don't know. I think DMing is kind of fun, and I think other people can enjoy it too, if that's sort of like what you're into. It's got pros and cons.
It does. I think you just have to, if you're becoming a DM or you're gonna be on the hot seat, so to speak, you have two components that you have to remember. One is that, you know, at the end of the day, it's a game that is based on you having fun with your friends. And if there's elements that are not fun, change it. It does not have to be the same cookie cut. This is it. If you guys aren't having fun, change it up. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Do it. And the second component is that the rules of, if you play Dungeons and Dragons in particular, are subject to change. It is a guideline. It's not solid as is. And there are people that are like, no, it is as written this. But if you read there's some spells you read and you're like, okay, but your interpretation is completely different. This has there's one time I was playing a character who turned into a large frog, and can swallow, right?
Yeah.
Bite and swallow. But I read it as on my turn, I can make if I catch someone, the next round I can swallow, is how I read it. And so you're just trapped, you're ensnared.
Yeah.
And then I can use the swallow action, because I saw swallowing as a second action, not one thing.
Yeah.
And as that's just how I interpreted it, and the DM at the time also interpreted it that way. So he was like, yeah, that's totally it. Then we played a new campaign together months later, like a month later or something like that, 2 months. And he did the same move. He had a frog swallow, like bite, catch my character and swallow it. And he's like, I don't remember the rule for that, but I'm just going to swallow you. And I was like, I was low-key pissed because I said, okay, well, you wouldn't let me do that in the last run, right? But I'm okay. What? The rules changed because you said so.
Right.
And I was like, I got it. And so I got mad and I was like, I'll just roll the damage because I knew what the damage was because I just literally played that character. And that's one of those things as, as a DM and a player, like you kind of have to remember that if you're playing together, like, okay, I ruled this way. I should, like, if there's a change, hey, let's say, you know what? When we had you do it that last time, it was kind of silly. I think that we should do it this way. And this is how rule changed. And that's okay. I was more annoyed that I was like, we had it set. This is what it was,
Yeah.
And when you DM, you kind of have to have flex.
Well, and I've managed in like real life. I've managed a lot of people over the years, and one thing that I always try to explain to them is like, okay, you need to see things from like the customer's point of view, right? So the next time you walk into somewhere like a coffee shop or a restaurant or a Target or whatever, like see what your interaction is and see how your interaction with the person checking you out or serving you or whatever it is, see how you feel about it, see how you like it. And then that way, when you go to work and you're on the other side of the counter, you can kind of apply that like map that you got from interacting with that person and sort of like work backwards from it so that you know how it felt when you had something done to you that you didn't like, or you had something done to you that you did like. So just reapply that. And I think it goes the same way too. Like if you're a player and maybe you're going into your first time being a game master, think about everything that you liked, particularly think about everything you didn't like from like another DM or something like that. Or if you have no experience, watch some of the shows that are out there, like Critical Role or whatever you want to watch. There's a literal
or listen.
Yeah,
or listen, like the podcast.
Yep,
there's some really great people. Not to cut you off, sorry, but there's some like Transplaner is a podcast, and they are awesome. Yep. And they actually do TikToks where they talk about like how to bring your players to the table for stuff, and they're really knowledgeable and lovely to listen to, because there's been stuff that I didn't really think about because I've played in tables, or I've played in a couple tables where we I didn't quite like the style, but I couldn't really pinpoint exactly what it was, or like how would I be able to shift to be like to encompass what I actually want. And they had like a whole thing about like, hey, do you touch base with your players at the end of the game? And I was like, oh wow, you know what? Doing that too, like do your first session and say, hey, how did that go? And did you like these what did you like about it? Was this okay? Did you like this? Oh, you have one person that is a murder hobo that wants combat every single game, is not happy unless they have one. You say, okay, cool. All right. So I know that, this person needs to have combat. Otherwise their attention goes out. I could get, if we're playing a 4-hour game, I think I can fit that in there. I just checked this up. Oh, you know what? I don't really like being like role playing at all. I just like to watch the role play. Like I'm not, and I go, okay, what does that mean? This person is shy, doesn't know the voice. So you give them small scenarios to work through it. I run a table now, and we play once a month, so we're getting close to playing. And I've done that with them, and that feedback's been good. It's helpful. Mostly it's like, oh, this is great. And once in a while it's like, I know, like sometimes we get a little stuck somewhere. Like I set up a puzzle, and I know they're okay with puzzles. But I set up this puzzle that literally the door was right there. I could just walk across. It wasn't, to be honest, the puzzle was like, don't touch one tile, pretty much. Like, don't touch this. It spelled out something, and it just spelled out, I can't even remember what the word was, but it spelled out the word, and you just walked on the word. That's it. Like, you don't walk anywhere else. And if you step off of it, nothing happens. You step on it, you hear, like, clinking. And once they activated all the steps, it opened the door. Oh my God. They didn't know what to do. They thought it was bad. So I was like, okay, I need to just say, okay, that's not going to work.
I love working with puzzles. Do you remember when I sent you guys into the obelisk that was on its side?
Yeah, that looks like a dick.
That looked like a dick. So it was just an obelisk that was falling through like this cliff face. And I think about halfway through, somebody was like, wait a minute. And they drew it out and they were like, is this a dick? I was like,
the minute you said it was leaning and it had like scraggly bushes and stuff, I was like, oh my God. Oh, yes.
But that one was really fun. I did like setting that up because you had a bunch of things going on because it itself was filling up with sand and it was on an eroding cliff face, so it was falling into the ocean, and you guys had to break the glass of the window to start draining the sand to give yourself more time to fight the mummies and get what you needed.
And no one did. We didn't do that.
No, you guys didn't do that. But
no, we didn't. We fought the mummies, and then we Misty stepped out of there.
Yep, you did, which is totally fine. So, which is a good point, right? Of being able to pivot as a DM and avoiding the ego. So like if you set up a whole big puzzle or a trap or this whole big elaborate beautiful thing that you in your mind have as this like novel of perfection, be cool with the fact that if they figure out something else to do, you're just gonna have to go with it. Like,
yeah,
just because they didn't do what you wanted them to do doesn't mean they did it wrong. They just did it different. And that's okay. Part of being the DM is being like able to recognize that you're not God, and so you can't control what your players are doing. You have written a story in which your characters within that story make their own decisions. And you have to write with that flow, which is why Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop games in particular are fun improv exercises. And so it's a whole bunch of, and all improv is give and take, right? Listen, yes, and there is no like, I mean, there is pushback, but not in the way of like, you didn't do what I wanted, so I'm going to punish you, or you have to do it right, or anything like that. You have to be flexible.
Yeah, and if you do play that way, where you're like, no, this is how it's supposed to be, this is what it is, and you have that like rules lawyering and stuff, it's not going to be a fun game. People are not going to want to sit at your table very long. And if they do, it's because they just want to play, you know?
Yeah.
But you really can't be a tyrant that way when you play. I had a session where, you know, I misstepped, okay? I built an NPC. He was supposed to be there. He was this wizard, Aarakocra, that was supposed to be there to help these guys. And they fought like this giant salamander thing. Well, I didn't realize that it was as bad as it was. Like, reading it on paper, I was like, oh, they can handle it. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to have him attack my beefy, because he was kind of beefy. He, like, I was going to be able to, he's going to be able to take a hit.
Aren't a slouch. Like,
no, I thought he was going to be able to take a hit, because I didn't read it proper. Okay. And right in the first 5 minutes of the game, my wizardy like guy that was supposed to help them out is snapped in two. Half of him eaten, the other half, like his legs tossed, right? He just ripped them in half, toss. And I was like, as I'm rolling, realizing this guy that's kind of important, my NPC that's kind of there to give narrative and like point them in the right direction, I just murdered. And I could not backtrack that.
Yeah.
And I realized in that moment that thing was going to wipe my whole team, like completely destroy them. And I had to make a decision. Do I do that as a DM, total party kill? So TPK them right then. Or do I fix this kind of thing? And I fixed it. I dropped the thing's health points. I didn't let it do its full attacks. I was like, it's actually a juvenile. Like it's a baby. Could you imagine if it was worse? No, it was the full thing. I just fixed it, right? There are DMs out there that would say that like, oh, you fixed it? Oh, I can't believe you did that. Oh, they should have TPK'd. Why? We were having fun. You know what came out of that moment? It wasn't, oh shit, your NPC died. That happened. But also, the next part was, hey, we have this potion of aqueous form. I said, yeah. And I let them kill this monster, and they were like super excited, right? They were happy about it. They retrieved half his torso. They retrieved his body, okay? I was very impressed with them. They said, can we pour this aqueous form in their mouth? Well, first they said, can we revivify them? I said, do you have that spell? They said, no. I said, okay. Then they said, can we use this aqueous form? I said, how? They said, we'll pour it into his mouth and then we'll pour his body into a bottle, because then we can do, basically, they have a very limited time from death to,
right,
be revivified. So,
right.
But he's in liquid form. He's not actually a person anymore. He's just water. And then the spell will end and then we can pick him up. I was like, this is very smart. I was like, okay, I was going to reward this until I asked one important question. What about his legs? Because he's like in half. I said, what about... I said, he's a torso, guys. He's a torso. And they go, well, I'll carry his legs on my shoulders and we'll run down the hill. We will run down this mountain. We will fly down this mountain. We will do whatever we can to get down this mountain. I'm dying, and I'm like, no, he's dead. Just let him die. He's just my mistake.
Moments like that are opportunities, if you're good, to have this. So, I think it's important to understand that everybody sees themselves as like the main character in a story, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just natural. Like, you spend the most time with yourself of anyone. So you're obviously going to think that you're always the main character of your own story. So your character is always going to be the main story of the character, or of the story you're telling. Mm-hmm. But that's not necessarily true. You accidentally kill your NPC, then introduce somebody else who swings in the last minute and is also hunting this person that you're fighting or something like that. There's nothing that says that you can't change the narrative to help your players tell a better story and a more lengthy story and a longer adventure. And maybe it's good to set up parameters in the beginning and be like, do you want to play a long story? Or do you want to play a short story? Or do some of you want to play different characters throughout this arc and this narrative? A lot of this, like many things, can be rectified with preemptive communication. If everybody's on the same page, more or less, you can tell a better story and a better game by going through it. But there's no like, even though there's hard rules and numbers and math and all these things that are cemented in to playing the game and to being the storyteller and the guide, doesn't say, and in fact it specifically says these are just guidelines, like we've talked about before. So you want to change something, change it, whatever. If you're in the moment and you want to help your friends enjoy the game you're all playing, then do it. You're not playing against anybody, you're playing with people. And you know, you just have to be a little bit the boss, you have to be a little bit the director, and you have to be a little bit the screenwriter, all these different hats that you throw on. But there's nothing saying that you can't do any of that. You know, you just have to be a little creative. That's part of being a DM, and that's part of being a GM. It's going to be really hard to GM a game if you're not a little bit creative. Like, that's going to be pretty difficult. Even if you use one of those preset stories.
Yeah, and you also have to recognize too always that you need to watch the players too. You know, you are there's the other component of we're storytelling and we're bringing you into the story. The other part is like making sure everyone meshes properly. And you know, if someone doesn't mesh, like, it sucks to be like, hey, I can't have you at my table anymore, or you're not going to be invited back, or it is hard to do that. And you know, I've done it.
Your responsibility.
And it is, especially when you're like, okay, if you have elements of what you don't want at the table, and you know, okay, I don't want this because this person is always has to be the hero.
Yes.
And everyone is the hero. But this particular person has to be always getting the last hit. Always, like, it's always about them. Always bullying people to go do certain things. You have to put your foot down and be like, no. Definitely not. If there's infighting...
If you got a table of 6 people and 5 of them constantly butt heads with this one person, don't punish 6 people because of one person. Like, just, you know, kind of pony up and make the right decision. Being a GM is not easy. Like, I'll say that right off the bat. Even doing it for kids and stuff, like, because, you know, the kids that I do it for, attention span's really hard. And so you have to be a little bit okay with them drifting off a little bit if you're telling a story, and be like, okay, they're not being offensive, they're being kids, and this is hard for, you know, there's no visuals really unless you've got
none,
some minis and a map, and even that's like pretty sparse for, especially for kids with a phone in their pocket. Like, you have to read the table a little bit, and being a DM is not easy. And if you're doing it, like, more power to you, and I guess thank you for stepping up to the plate, but also take the responsibility with you too.
Yeah,
more or less.
It is. Yeah, pretty much. It's it really is. It can be a lot of fun. You just have to really start on those two fronts of, okay, what story am I telling, and who are my players? Session 0 is important, so that way everyone, not only can you lay out, like, this is what I want at my table, talking to people, finding out what they want at the table, because it's not all about you sometimes, right? It's all of us together. And
most of the times it's not.
Yeah, like, we all need to, you know, we're doing this together. So you got to make sure you have those components.
And maybe since it kind of goes with being a DM, next time, since we're sort of running short on time, do you want to talk about world building?
Yeah, let's talk about world building this time.
All right, so next Tuesday, come back, everybody, and we'll talk about world building, because that's sort of like DM part 2, really, because you got to do that. But anyway, you can find us all over social media, the Elder Elves, your Obscure Abrasion on pretty much everything. I'm Colin Carlton VO on pretty much everything. And,
pretty much.
Yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week.